From the Aishin Broadcast Studio, it's Wash Talk.
Welcome to the Professional Car Washing and Detailing's Wash Talk. I'm your host, Brian Ankney. Today, my guest is Curtis Ray from Acquire Video. Welcome, Curtis.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Hey, I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Where'd you come in from today?
Oklahoma City area.
Well, welcome. Let's get started with a little bit about you. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and the career path that led you to where you are today?
Well, I was born in Panama City, Florida. I'm an Air Force brat, if you will.
Yeah.
Moved to Oklahoma as a part of my dad being stationed there and just ended up staying. I've been married 30 years. I have two boys. One of them, the oldest one, Cyrus, he works for Acquire Video.
Oh.
So, and that's a lot about me. We've just started a business with my brother in the mid-90s, Acquire Video, and here we are.
Cool. Well, I want to talk a little bit about camera quality. I mean, just like every technology, it just gets better and better and better and better and faster and faster and faster and faster. Cameras are no different. What difference does having better cameras make to a car wash? And talk to me a little bit about megapixel technology.
Okay, that's one of the things. Car washes need high-end cameras. It's a fact. There's a lot of people that think you can get away with lower-end cameras because the technology has gotten better. But in essence, the water and a lot of the chemicals and the environment are very hard on the camera equipment.
Yeah.
And so you have to have equipment that's going to withstand the harsh car wash environment. Also, to be able to, that all cameras aren't created equal. They say, you mentioned megapixel technology. They may say they're X megapixel, 8 megapixel, 4K, but when you really look at it, what's being recorded on the recorder doesn't necessarily match what the camera's necessarily pushing. So there's a lot of misconceptions about that. But generally speaking, the lower end cameras are constant problems for the operators. We get, I would say, majority of our clientele are people who went that route and saw that it didn't really work for them.
I mean, is that because the cameras weren't lasting or because they weren't delivering a clear enough image?
Actually, both. The recorders are designed, they're very they're very cheap, if you will. And so they have to dumb all the settings down in order for them to actually function because the processors are low end too. When you look at the playback, it's not as clear as it was when you looked at it live. And that's when you need to see the damage, is when you reverse and go back into the playback. And so a lot of the settings have to be dumbed down on the recorder. Then the cameras themselves, they may say they're rated at a certain megapixel or what have you, but it's not really that clear. It's like any camera, you can buy high-end Canon, Nikon, those cameras are going to look really good. And then you also have other lower cameras. They say they may be the same resolution, but they're just not as good. Well,
let's talk about where the cameras go, because I know in a previous conversation you and I had discussed this, and I want to share it with the audience. I guess it makes sense that you need to have cameras on the way in because you want to see that scratch on the way in.
Right.
But you had brought up having cameras on the way out. Can you explain that to our audience, why it's important to have cameras at both the entrance and the exit of the wash?
Yeah, so generally you obviously want to catch the damage before it enters the wash. And most of these people really think, a majority think that the damage was caused by the car wash. Their car's clean, they're looking at it, oh, I don't remember that scratch, I think it must have been the car wash. Mm-hmm. So we have to capture the damage at the entry very well in order to scan the image. But the exit, if they leave and come back 2 days later and they see the scratch at home, maybe they didn't really look at it at the time, then they're going to come back and say, hey, you scratched my car. And if you only have cameras at the entry and nothing at the exit and you don't see the scratch when it goes in, they're going to say, see, it wasn't there when it went in, so it had to be you. And so that's why you really have to have them. Now, some people will have the same amount of cameras at the front of the entry at the exit as well. And that's just a preference of the operator.
I got you. So what you're saying is I could drive into the car wash and not have the scratch. I could leave the car wash and not have the scratch. It could get scratched at the gas station, at the grocery store, at my office the next day. And if you don't document that I left your wash without the scratch, both you and I are going to think you caused that scratch.
Exactly. In shopping carts, you go to the grocery store, shopping cart hits it. Oh, you didn't know it, and it had to be the car wash's fault because that's what they think.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense, especially if you showed me a video where my car went in without the scratch.
Right. And you have nothing to show at the exit. You're like, well, okay, well, it had to be you because I wasn't there before. And your video is actually proving their point if you don't have something at the exit. I tend to not do as many. Sometimes my recommendations are have less cameras at the exit because we don't want to see the scratch there. So we don't have to necessarily have the same array at the exit as the entrance. One on each side and one on the tops, generally what we recommend, but a lot of operators want to just do mimic coverage from the entry and the exit.
I guess it would be a little easier to capture that footage too because the car is clean.
The car's clean, right. And even at the exit, when there's a lot of prep going on, there's some issues there, but we try to talk to the operators about how we can work the cameras in with the prep. But I will say this, damage on the car, I don't care. There's a lot of things, and we'll get into that later. Seeing pre-existing damage on cars is the king. It still is. It will always be, because that's where when you have 500 to 1,000 people come through your wash, and you have to make a decision: do I, pay this claim or do I not pay this claim? You want to be protected, and you want to have the best protection you can, because it will pay for itself over the long run.
Let's talk about other cameras. Where else at the car wash is it important to have cameras?
Well, obviously you want to have it as a security component. That's probably where everything starts with any retail business or any consumer business for that matter. But we want to have cameras in pay stations. We want to see the transactions, the pay stations. We want to see if you're still using cash. Someone can say, oh, I put a 20 in and I didn't get change. We want to be able to see that currency, see if that was a 20 or a 10 or a 5 or a 1.
Yeah.
So we want, and we also want to monitor, because these days we have a lot of our operators have personnel at the pay stations selling monthly passes. So we need to monitor that activity to make sure we have those people there doing their job. Mm-hmm. And so that's one way to manage that. But also vacuum areas, you have common areas. The vacs are large, usually cover a lot of area. We're not trying to necessarily see, fine detail, so we don't have to get crazy, but we need to see the entire property. We need to see everything on the property that's allowable by law. Operators need to see what's going on. That
makes sense. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Watch the employee to make sure if the employee knows they're being watched, then they're going to be more likely to do what they're supposed to do.
Right.
But even, in the vacuum area, that probably makes female customers to feel a little more comfortable, because bad guys are less likely to come if they know they're getting recorded.
Right. Lighting's there's all sorts of things, or obviously help the cameras, but yeah, they're going to feel safe at the car washes, and we want to monitor. There's been slip and falls, icy conditions. We were talking about how great the weather is here today, but maybe it could have been different. And you have a scenario where you have ice, someone slips and falls. If you don't have coverage and can't capture that, you may be subject to a lawsuit and have no evidence to help back your side of the story.
Wow. Well, it sounds like having coverage is worth the investment.
Absolutely.
Can you talk to me a little bit about the difference in cost and how and why high quality cameras are worth the investment to a car wash owner?
Yes. Well, as the technology has been proliferated over the last few years, when we started in 2001, we were using tape to capture, car wash, and we didn't have the express model. We got in 2003 and 4 when it first started, and then we were just using what was analog. But as the technology has progressed, we've gone into HD, megapixel, started doing that in 2008, but now the resolutions, you can go online and the internet, and everything looks great. Marketing puffery, if you will, is what everything's the greatest, but the technology. The reason you want to have a higher end camera system versus a lower end camera system, consumer grade are great for your house. They're great for maybe a retail environment where you have drop ceiling and maybe a counter like a convenience store, things of that nature. But when you are in the car wash environment, first of all, there's a lot of cameras. So the higher the camera count, you need to have a system that's going to function and run those cameras like we discussed earlier at the full resolution, where what you're pushing on the camera is being actually recorded on the recorder, or it's useless.
Yeah.
And so those are called enterprise class systems. Enterprise class systems are designed for high-end, like sports stadiums. You see them in hospitals, museums, things that they're designed to run high amount of cameras. And in the car wash industry, as these sites have gotten larger and larger, and especially with inspection, having to have them run so high, you have sites. We have one site that we did last year. We have 87 cameras.
Wow.
At that site. So and you have to have the ability to adequately record, have the storage capacity. You want to at least get, people say, how many days do I get? It's probably one of the number one question. Well, it's subjective, but it's based on motion. So if you're busy, you need to have the capacity to be able to store archive video. And so just telling someone how many terabytes it is doesn't really tell you the whole story. You need to tell them we estimate it's going to be X number of days or X number of months. And then you can add storage, or you can store offsite on the cloud, which can be 30, 60, 90 days or higher.
Presented from the Ishin Broadcast Studio at Babcock's Media.
How long do you recommend? I mean, if I'm a car wash owner, I just built my first wash, and I say I want to be protected by cameras. What would you recommend for me? Or maybe just a range of is it a week? Is it a month to 2 months? Is it 2 months to 4 months? Like what's a range where you could feel secure that you're keeping that footage as long as you need to?
I like that question because I get asked all the time, and you chase your tail. 30 days is what I recommend. But I have people call and say, I need to go back 45 days or 46 days, and if you do 45, someone's going to come in and say it was 46. You do 60, they're going to say they needed 61 days in the past. So it's never enough. In a perfect world, you'd like to have the video for as long as you could possibly have it. But at some point, you have to make a decision of, after X number of days, we are not responsible. So 30 days to me has been the industry standard in car wash business for as long as I've been in it. And that's what I recommend. Now, if someone wants more, we can, we do that for them. But I'd say you've got to have a cutoff point at some
point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's, we talked about, preventing theft or fraud at the pay station. We talked about damaging the car. We talked about employees doing their job. We talked about some safety issues and maybe in fraudulent injuries. So we kind of talked about all the bad things that take place. I want to bring up one more because car washes are all about having a great reputation, right? Because you want your customers to come, you want your customers to stay, you want them to be on your monthly plan forever. How do cameras help with maintaining a good reputation?
Well, basically with the social media aspect of everything, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I'm in a town, I want to eat, I always look at the reviews, right? How many stars it has, and if it's low, I'm probably not going to eat there. Same with the car wash business. There's a lot of more car washes than there used to be. They're showing up, I mean, they're on every corner just about these days. And so you have to differentiate yourself from others. And these cameras, good cameras that capture damage, are only going to pay for themselves when you can refute the claim. Because you can get the $500 and show the customer, hey, I didn't do it, and they're okay with that. But what if you don't have the camera system? You're only thinking about the front end cost. Oh, I can get this camera system cheap through this group or this group. And you're not really thinking about the back end. And on the back side of things, there's a lot of profit that's being lost today by operators because they're only worried about the front side. And I'm telling you, I've had a couple of operators tell me and I won't say these are scientific studies, but for every customer they lost because they couldn't refute a damage claim prior to like us putting a system in for them that would help them with that, there are several $1,000s because they extrapolate that over people who didn't show up. So those people were never able to be pitched at their pay stations to subscribe to their car wash.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, social media has really amplified word of mouth. I mean, in the old days, they used to say if you have a customer that's delighted with you, they'll tell 3 people, and if a customer hates you, they'll tell 30 people.
Right.
Well, now with social media, it could be 3,000 people.
Yeah, nobody wants to talk. I mean, I say nobody. Most people want to always complain. There's not a lot of people, oh, it's the greatest thing ever. I mean, they just want a clean car, and they want not to damage their car. And most operators that I've dealt with will always, they use the camera system. If they did damage the car, they will say, hey, it was us. And so it works both ways.
Yeah.
Generally, it works one way, but for the most part, the operators just want to be fair with the customer. But if you're an operator or a corporation that all you care about is, well, I can get this system for this price, and you're looking at the front end of things, you're completely missing all the profit you're missing on the back end.
Interesting. So it definitely has a really positive effect on subscription sales.
Absolutely, because those people that will show up to be pitched may not show up to be pitched if your system can't show the pre-existing damage that was there on previous customers, and they're going to go somewhere else that has that system.
Yeah. I mean, it
doesn't take very long. You don't have to go very far these days.
Yeah. I mean, my wife's like that with restaurants, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
If it's not, like, it's hard for me, if somebody's recommended a restaurant and they're 4.4 stars, it's really hard. Like, her cutoff is 4.5.
Wow.
And she's real particular with restaurants. And, I mean, maybe a food snob.
Well, that's okay. No, my brother, Travis, my partner in Choir Video, he's a food snob too. But sometimes you got to look inside the reviews to see why they were rated. And a lot of it's the server was terrible, or I had to wait for my Grubhub order. It's just not really related to food. I mean, you're going to get service going to vary from place to place. But same thing with car wash. A lot of times they'll post a picture of their damage on the and then they'll get crickets from the operator because they didn't have a system either. Cameras were down, or you'd just be shocked how many terrible camera systems are at car washes still after all this time.
Well, this wouldn't be an interview in 2024 if I didn't ask you something about AI.
Oh, God, yeah.
There hasn't been 30 minutes of video content yet this year where AI wasn't brought up. So let's talk about AI. how is AI affecting cameras and security on the car wash level?
Well, I mean, obviously with the increased competition, operators are looking to get an edge these days on, and so you already have cameras on site, or most places will have them, and so they're using the cameras to try to help differentiate themselves from a sales perspective and from an operations standpoint of how to better their operation, how to make it run more efficiently. So, for example, if you're someone that's a member of a car wash and you're like, I'm not even going to go, it's going to take me 20 minutes to get through, even though you have a pass. AI can do things like it can tell the operator, hey, we have a choke point on pay station 1. Something, for whatever reason, POS 1 is taking 5 minutes for cars to get through while POS 2 is taking 3. So it gives insights that you don't have to stand and look at the screens all the time to determine. It can learn your business and then notify. And we're in an over notification world, I'm not going to lie. So you have to set it in a way to where it's reasonable. Maybe 5 cars in a row that are in a pay station longer than 3 minutes, alert the manager. That way the manager can then, I got a problem here, and go check it out. They may not even know it's going on if they're not notified. So AI is a benefit there. We're also using the capacity to help increase membership sales, and I think this is really important. So we have the ability to, when a car comes in, grab its plate, make, model, and then tell the person at the pay station, if they have a attendant there, how many times this person's been to this wash and if they have a monthly pass or not. And so that way you can tailor your pitch to make it where, you already kind of have a warm lead, if you will.
Yeah.
I've noticed you've been here twice this month. Today if you had a monthly pass, your wash would be free. So it gives the employees a tool to help sell more memberships.
Wow, that's actually super cool.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
And we can tell how long someone's been on the whole lot from start to finish, wheels on, wheels off. If it's been 7 minutes, 10, how many percentage vacuumed, how many didn't. Heat mapping the whole area so you can see, maybe you have product placement you want to put, and we talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
If you see where maybe a lot of your vacuum traffic is heavier in one area, we do heat mapping. You can say, I'm going to put our monthly membership sign over here because we have more traffic in this area. There's all sorts of things we can do. Spill detection. So if you have a camera in your pumping room or your pump room or equipment room, it can detect water and spills and notify. We can differentiate between people, animals, pay stations. We have damage. Someone comes and vandalizes a pay station. Camera can actually see, hey, this person is not supposed to be here at this certain time between, let's say, 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. and send an alert to a manager or an operator or a regional manager, as well as do even audible alerts telling whoever's in the area, you're in a restricted zone, the police are being notified, leave immediately. And so it just changed everything.
Wow.
And even with all that, though, I still will tell you that seeing damage on cars is still number one.
Still number one.
I don't care. Yeah, this stuff is great and it works and we love it. But when it comes down to it, I always have my operators say, well, am I going to see scratches on the cars? And so the AI is fun stuff. It's being talked about a lot now. But it's definitely helping the industry too.
Cool. Well, Curtis, is there anything more you'd like to share with our audience today?
I wanted to thank you for having me here. I think there's the car wash industry has exploded, obviously, in the last, I've been in it 25 years nearly, but I appreciate you having me here to explain a lot of this and what's going on with cameras. A lot of people, it gets overlooked a little bit with all the other technology that's going on right now in the car wash industry, but that's what I want to say. I want to thank you for having me here.
Great. Well, thank you for coming.
Brian, thanks.
Thank you for taking the time to join us for this Professional Car Washing and Detailing's Wash Talk. I'm your host, Brian Ankney. Today, my guest has been Curtis Ray from Acquire Video. We hope to see you again on a future episode.